study involving energy drinks,
Yeah.
aiming to boost mental focus.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and it had this really surprising result. People who got a discount, so they only paid like 89 cents instead of the full $1.89.
Uh-huh.
They actually solved fewer mental puzzles than the folks who paid full price.
Wow, really? So paying less made them perform worse.
Exactly. It really makes you think, doesn't it? Like, is the cheapest option always the best deal, even beyond just saving cash?
That's a great hook because it points straight to how our brains aren't always these perfectly rational calculators we sometimes think they are.
Right.
We lean heavily on mental shortcuts, these kind of automatic, almost preset responses that guide us without needing tons of conscious thought.
Yeah, like autopilot responses. And it's not just us humans, right? Animals do this too.
Absolutely. Ethologists call them fixed action patterns, these kind of complex behaviors triggered by something really specific.
Like that famous mother turkey example.
Exactly. She'll care for anything, making that cheap sound, even if it's just a stuffed polecat with a recorder inside.
Seriously.
Yeah, but she might ignore or even attack her own chick if it's silent. It's like you said, a switch flips, click the trigger hits.
And run the automatic routine plays out. We call them click-run responses.
Spot on. And usually these shortcuts are super efficient. They help us handle a really complex world without overthinking every single thing.
Makes sense. We'd be paralyzed otherwise.
But here's the kicker. These very shortcuts, the ones that usually help us out, they can be deliberately triggered by others. Exploited, really.
And that's what we're diving into today. We're looking at the work of Dr. Robert Cialdini. He spent, 3 years undercover?
Yeah, 3 years as a participant observer inside all sorts of organizations, sales teams, marketing firms, fundraising groups, places focused on getting people to say yes.
Getting compliance. He wanted to see these tactics in action.
Exactly. And his big insight was that even though there are countless different tactics, they mostly fall into just 7 basic categories.
7 core psychological principles that influence us.
That's right. And our mission today is to start unpacking these. Why do we use these shortcuts? What are the principles behind them? And crucially, how can we get better at spotting when they might be leading us astray?
Okay, so those 7 principles Cialdini found are, reciprocation, liking, social proof, authority, scarcity, commitment and consistency, and unity. That last one's newer, right?
It is. Added in later work. It's a lot to cover.
Definitely. So today, let's maybe start with a couple of the big ones. How about we begin with one most of us probably use all the time without thinking? The idea that, expensive equals good.
Ah, yes. The price-quality heuristic. It's amazing how deep that runs. Cialdini tells that great story about the turquoise jewelry.
Oh, the one where the shop owner couldn't sell it.
Right, until she mistakenly doubled the price. Tourists, who knew basically nothing about turquoise, suddenly started snapping it up.
Because they use price as a shortcut for quality. Higher price must mean it's better stuff.
Exactly. It's a mental rule of thumb. And look, it often comes from experience, right? Often, higher price does mean better materials or craftsmanship.
Sure, you what you pay for. We hear that all the time.
But as the energy drink example showed, and the turquoise story highlights, it's a shortcut that can definitely mislead us when we're not experts.
And Cialdini also points out the flip side, doesn't he? Like an inexpensive equals bad rule.
He does. Think about the word cheap in English. It means low cost, sure, but it also often implies, shoddy or low quality.
Yeah, it's got that negative vibe. So that fancy coffee I sometimes buy, maybe my brain just thinks the higher price tag means it'll actually work better.
Could be. And it makes sense why we rely on these things. Think about it, we just don't have the bandwidth, the mental energy, to depthly analyze every single choice we face every day.
No way. It would be exhausting.
So we default to these rules of thumb, and we're more likely to use this click-run thinking when we either don't really care enough about the issue or we don't feel we have the ability or information to think it through properly.
That lines up perfectly with that university study Cialdini mentions, the one about comprehensive exams.
Oh yeah, the senior exam study, that's a classic.
So they had students listen to someone arguing for these big final exams. For some students, it was super relevant and it could affect them directly.
Right, the policy would start before they graduated.
But for others, it was like way off in the future. Wouldn't affect them at all.
And the difference in how they listened was huge.
Totally. The students who might be affected, they really picked apart the arguments. Didn't matter who was speaking.
They focused on the quality of the reasoning. Were the arguments strong or weak?
But the other group, the ones it wouldn't affect.
They mostly just used a shortcut. Was the speaker an expert? If the speaker sounded credible, like an authority figure.
If an expert said so, it must be right. They didn't analyze the arguments nearly as much.
Exactly. It clearly shows when we engage our analytical gears versus when we kind of coast on these automatic shortcuts.
Okay, so we lean on shortcuts when we're not motivated or maybe not able to think deeply. Let's switch gears a bit. What about the contrast principle? That one's pretty subtle.
The contrast principle. Yeah, it's subtle but powerful. It's all about how we judge things based on what came just before.
Like the water bucket experiment.
That's the perfect illustration. Put one hand in hot water, one in cold, then both into lukewarm water.
And the lukewarm water feels cold to the hot hand and hot to the cold hand, even though it's the same temperature.
Precisely. Our perception is relative to the immediate past experience.
So how does this get used, say, in sales?
Well, a classic technique is to show the expensive item first. If a salesperson shows you a $1,000 suit first, then a $200 sweater afterwards seems much more reasonable, right? Maybe even cheap by comparison.
I see. Compared to the $1,000, $200 feels like a bargain, even if $200 is still a lot for a sweater on its own.
Exactly. It's about setting that initial anchor point high. The contrast makes the subsequent item seem less costly.
And there's a clear profit motive there, obviously. Sell the big ticket item if you can, but if not, make the smaller items seem more appealing.
Definitely. And Cialdini notes, if you do it the other way around, show the cheap item first, then the expensive one can seem even more outrageously priced.
So it's all about sequencing. Frame it right. Okay, that makes sense. Now let's get into one of the really fundamental ones, reciprocation. The power of give and take.
Oh, reciprocation is huge. It's deeply, deeply ingrained in, well, pretty much all human societies. This powerful feeling that we have to repay favors, gifts, invitations.
It feels almost like a debt, doesn't it?
It really does. Cialdini shares that story from a reader's report, remember? The woman in Oregon.
Who felt stuck in her job.
Yeah, she'd maxed out her salary, no chance for promotion, but she felt she couldn't leave. Why? Because her boss had given her and her son gifts over the years. Small things, maybe, but over 6 years.
Wow. So that feeling of obligation literally held her back from looking for a better job.
It completely hampered her search. It shows the emotional weight, doesn't it? It's not always about the cash value. It's the feeling of owing someone.
And it works with small things too, right? Like the guerrilla fighter Cialdini mentioned.
Exactly. Received a small, unexpected gift and then spilled a load of valuable information. It triggers this deep-seated urge.
It's funny, sometimes we try to brush off small favors, don't we?
Yeah.
It's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm sure you'd do the same for me.
We do, but the feeling can still linger. Cialdini even talks about swapping seats on a plane. He didn't really want the other guy's seat, preferred his own aisle seat, but the guy was so incredibly grateful.
That Cialdini felt obligated anyway, even though it wasn't really a sacrifice for him.
Exactly. The perception of a favor being done created that sense of obligation. It's almost automatic.
Like we have this internal scorecard keeping track. And companies and organizations know this, right? They use it deliberately.
Oh, absolutely. Think about surveys. Researchers found that including a small cash gift, like a dollar coin, with the survey gets much higher response rates than promising a much bigger reward, say $50, after it's completed.
Giving first is the key.
It really is. Same in restaurants. Servers who give a mint or a candy with the bill, they consistently get bigger tips. It works across cultures, too.
And what about the balloon example at the fast food place?
Right. Giving a kid a balloon before the family orders. What happens? The family ends up spending more money overall, even on things the kid probably wouldn't normally eat.
It taps into that a gift to my child is a gift to me feeling.
Exactly. It hits multiple psychological buttons at once.
Okay, but what about politics? This gets tricky there, doesn't it? Campaign donations, gifts. Politicians always say it doesn't influence them.
They do often deny it very strongly. You hear that quote sometimes from the state representative about contributions getting donors exactly what it gets everybody else. Nothing. But, that denial stands in pretty stark contrast to how powerfully this principle works everywhere else in human interaction. It's hard to believe it just switches off in that one context.
Fair point. And this give and take idea, it even applies to negotiating styles, doesn't it?
It can. Cialdini mentions those two brothers with the pet supply company. One is the hard-nosed negotiator, always bargaining.
Right.
The other brother figures out a fair price for storage, makes that offer up front, and doesn't really budge much. He gives a fair deal first. That can build trust and might be more effective long-term than just constant haggling.
Interesting. A different kind of giving. Now, Sometimes this feeling of obligation can go way overboard, right? Like that story about the student and the car.
Oh, the jumpstart story. That's a rough one.
Her old car needed a jumpstart. The guy helps her out. A month later, he needs to borrow a car.
And feeling obligated from that single jumpstart, she lends him her new car.
And he totals it.
Yeah. A devastating outcome, all stemming from the obligation created by a relatively small favor. It shows how skewed the repayment can sometimes become.
Definitely makes you think. Okay, what about that other technique related to this? The rejection then retreat.
Ah, yes. Sometimes called the door-in-the-face technique. Very clever, often very effective.
How does that work again?
You start by making a really big request, something you're pretty sure the other person will refuse, will slam the door in your face, metaphorically.
Okay, like asking for a $100 donation when you know that's unlikely.
Exactly. Then, when they say no, you immediately retreat to a much smaller request, like, okay, well, how about just $10?
And the person is more likely to agree to the $10 then.
Significantly more likely. There are a couple of things going on. First, you've made a concession, right? You backed down from $100 to $10. The reciprocity rule kicks in. They feel obligated to make a concession in return.
Which is agreeing to the smaller request.
Right. Plus, the contrast principle is at play too. Compared to $100, $10 seems pretty small. And there's another layer. People targeted with this technique tend to feel more responsible for the final agreement, like they helped shape it, and they actually report feeling more satisfied with the outcome.
Even if they ended up agreeing to something they might not have otherwise.
Even then, that satisfaction makes them more likely to actually follow through on the agreement and even agree to similar requests in the future.
Wow. That's potent. So how do we defend against this? Against being manipulated by reciprocity?
The key is awareness and reframing. When someone offers you something, a gift, a favor, a concession, you need to ask yourself, is this a genuine act of kindness, or is it potentially the first step in a compliance tactic?
So mentally label it differently.
Exactly. If it feels like it comes with strings attached or creates an obligation that seems way out of proportion, redefine it in your mind. It's not a gift. It's a sales tool. It's not a concession, it's a setup.
Like the free home safety inspection that leads to the hard sell on an expensive alarm system.
Perfect example. Recognize the free inspection for what it is, part of the sales pitch. Once you see it as a tactic, the feeling of obligation to buy the alarm system weakens dramatically.
Because the rule is you repay genuine favors, not tricks.
Precisely. You don't owe compliance in return for manipulation.
Got it. Awareness is key. Okay, let's move on to another big one. Liking. Seems simple, right? We say yes to people we like.
It seems obvious, but the why and the how are fascinating, and how easily liking can be manufactured or leveraged.
Yeah, like how?
Well, think about sheer association. A study found that people's acceptance of evolutionary theory actually increased if they were simply told that a celebrity they like, say George Clooney or Emma Watson, supported it.
Just hearing that association shifted their view.
Yeah.
Regardless of their background.
Yeah, across different ages, genders, even religious beliefs. The positive feeling towards the celebrity kind of spilled over onto the idea itself.
That's wild. And you see this in sales all the time, I guess, like Tupperware parties.
A classic example. People go, they know their friend, the host, gets a cut. They feel the social pressure. But they buy anyway. Why? Because they like the host. That relationship makes it really hard to say no.
And Tupperware is still huge globally, right? It's not just a retro thing.
Absolutely massive. Billions in sales, most of it outside North America now. It works.
Yeah.
And then there's the endless chain method.
What's not?
Companies like Shackley used it. Salesperson comes to you and says, oh, your friend, Jane Smith, suggested I give you a call.
Using a friend's name as an introduction.
Exactly. It's much harder to shut the door, literally or figuratively, when there's that implied recommendation from someone you know and presumably like. We trust recommendations from friends way more than anything else, like 92% trust rate, according to Nielsen.
Yeah, rejecting them feels like rejecting your friend somehow. Yeah, wasn't there that car salesman, Joe Girard? The greatest car salesman.
Yep, Joe Girard. His formula was incredibly simple, he said. Give people a fair price and...
make them like you.
Exactly. Be someone they like buying from. He used to send out thousands of holiday cards every year to past customers. The message... just, I like you.
That's it. I like you.
That was the core message. That simple, personal touch built connection and loyalty.
Amazing. And it's not just about personality, is it? Physical attractiveness plays a role too, often unconsciously. The halo effect.
Oh, definitely. We tend to automatically assume good-looking people have other positive traits, like they're more talented, kind, honest, intelligent,
Even if we have no evidence for it?
often with zero evidence. And we're usually not even aware that their looks are influencing our judgment. That Canadian election study was eye-opening.
The one showing attractive candidates got more votes.
Disproportionately more votes. And the voters. They completely denied that appearance played any role in their choice. It operates under the radar.
Scary stuff. And besides looks, just being similar to someone makes us like them more, right?
Absolutely. We like people who are like us. It can be anything: shared opinions, background, lifestyle, even really trivial things.
Like what?
Studies found people are more helpful to those with similar fingerprint types, believe it or not, or more likely to complete a survey if the sender's name has similar initials to their own, like Robert Greer sending to Bob Gregar.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Just similar initials.
Measurably increased compliance. Online marketers know this stuff inside out. They talk about leveraging familiarity, similarity, mirroring body language, doing small favors, showing liking. It all builds rapport.
So giving genuine compliments works.
Genuine compliments are powerful, even ones heard indirectly, like someone overhearing you saying something nice about them. And there's that technique called alter casting.
Alter casting?
Where you assign someone a positive trait or role, hoping they'll live up to it, like the insurance agent telling parents they're clearly responsible protectors who want the best for their family, making it harder for them to then turn down the life insurance policy that fits that protector role.
Ah, giving them a reputation to live up to. Clever. But liking can also be used to divide, right?
Yeah.
Like in that Robbers Cave experiment.
Right. That classic study showed how frighteningly easy it is to create us versus them hostility. Just separating boys into two cabins at summer camp and letting them choose names for their groups, Eagles and Rattlers, was enough to spark intense rivalry and prejudice.
Just creating groups was enough? Wow.
It started almost immediately, which led to ideas like the jigsaw classroom.
That's where kids from different groups have to cooperate to learn something.
Exactly. Each student gets a piece of the puzzle, and they need each other to succeed. It can reduce prejudice by fostering cooperation towards shared goals.
Makes sense.
But Cialdini adds a note of caution. It's not a magic bullet. Intergroup relations are complex, and competition isn't always bad. It can be a great motivator, too. It's about finding balance.
Right. Not eliminating competition, but managing it. Okay, one last thing on liking simple association. Linking things to positive events.
Yes. Companies pay huge money to associate their products with things we already feel good about, like the Olympics or historically the moon landing.
Because those good feelings rub off on the product.
Pretty much. Surveys show a significant chunk of consumers are more likely to buy something if it's linked to the Olympics, for example. We transfer the positive emotion.
Like that movie studio employee Cialdini mentions, feeling proud about Kevin Costner's Oscar speech.
Yeah, that feeling of shared identity of we won. When our group achieves something, we feel personally boosted by the association.
So the bottom line defense against being manipulated by liking.
Be alert to it. Ask yourself, am I liking this person too much, too quickly, given the situation? And crucially, mentally separate the person making the request from the request itself. Judge the deal on its merits, not just on whether you like the salesperson.
Okay, let's try and pull this together. We've covered quite a bit today.
We have. We looked at those automatic click-run responses, how they're usually helpful but can be exploited.
Right, and that expensive equals good shortcut, which isn't always reliable.
Then the contrast principle, how comparing things can shift our perception of value.
And we dove deep into reciprocation, that incredibly powerful urge to repay favors, gifts, concessions, and how it can be used, like with rejection then retreat tactic.
And finally, the principle of liking. How much easier it is to influence someone if they like you, whether it's through similarity, compliments, or just positive association.
And these are just a few of the 7 principles Cialdini identified. We still have social proof, authority, scarcity, commitment, and consistency, and unity to explore down the line.
Exactly. But hopefully, just unpacking these first few gives you, the listener, a better sense of the kinds of psychological forces that are often subtly guiding your decisions every day.
Absolutely. It's not about being paranoid, is it? It's just about being more aware. Knowing how persuasion works helps you navigate it better.
It empowers you to make choices that are genuinely your own, based on the actual merits, rather than just an automatic reaction to a cleverly deployed trigger.
Makes total sense. So maybe a final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah, how about this? Think back to the last time you made a quick decision, maybe buying something, agreeing to a small request. Was it based on a clear signal, like a price tag, or maybe just because the person asking was really friendly, ask yourself, were you fully in the driver's seat for that decision, or was a click-run program potentially influencing you? And now that you know a bit more about these levers of influence, what might you do differently next time you spot one?